What's up guys, Eden here, and welcome back to this week's Q&A video. Sorry, I'm really doing a bad job about doing this weekly like I'm supposed to. But, you know, it is what it is, and life gets busy, and weather sucks so badly, so I've been just trying to get ahead. But thank you guys all for being so patient with me, and for sticking around doing all this, and we'll just jump straight into this, okay? Alright, the first question is, if you had a superpower, what superpower would you have? Alright, I don't know if anyone has ever seen the anime Read or Die. If you haven't, you should, it's really good. But the main character in the anime, or rather in the OVA, her name is Yomiko Reedman, and she is a paper master. And what it is she has the power to manipulate paper, also known as papyrus. Or paper kinesis, whatever. And basically she can change the density and the length and all that of paper. Just to give you an example, she carries around a suitcase full of paper, and she carries books on her all the time. And essentially, when she's fighting an enemy, she just opens up the briefcase and whips out a bunch of paper. She can wrap a dome of paper around her to protect her from fire, but it kind of burns away after a while, like if she's running away from it. Like the weakness of it is that if it gets too wet or if it gets too hot, it will melt. She can use cardstock, and she's used cardstock to block a bullet at point blank range. And at one point in the OVA, she didn't have any paper, and she grabbed a bunch of money out of this guy's pocket and turned it into a sword and could block a steel weapon. And it's just a really cool ability, and I've always wanted to utilize it, and I thought it was really cool. And just imagine the different things that you could do with paper, like what all you could create. She created a giant airplane. She created her, well, in the anime, the Paper Sisters made their clothes out of paper, and one of them used a bow and arrow, one of them used hand-to-hand fighting, and another one she made, I guess you call them familiars. She would make familiars out of paper, and they would be utilized to fight for them. So it's just a really cool ability. I thought it was. Alright, the next question is, are you still upset about the Cuckoo Incident in Ocarina of Time? Okay. The little backstory, my friend Ray, who I mentioned before in another Q&A video, I had never played Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I actually had never played a Legend of Zelda game, period, at the point when she and I were friends, and so I used to go over her house after school, and the first Zelda game I played was Ocarina of Time. And she trolled me so good. We were going into the village, and she told me to kick the cuckoo, and so I kicked it. And she told me to kick it again, I kicked it again, and I kicked it a third time, and then a mafia of cuckoo, like, just swarmed at me out of nowhere, and I didn't know what was happening. And, so it was crazy, and I was like, I don't even know what's happening anymore, and I ran away. And essentially, what happens is that the cuckoo actually can kill you. They can kill you. They will mob you and kill you. But I managed to run away and hide in the windmill before the mob could murder me completely. So that's just an incident that we like to talk about all the time. And in the next Q&A, I'll also mention another Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time reference regarding the controls for the N64, but we'll get to that in the next Q&A. Alright, and the next question is, what music are you into at the moment? The music that I'm currently into, I'm kind of a music junkie, so I listen to basically everything, but the main thing that I've been listening to a lot lately is a lot of electronica, dubstep, a lot of step music in general. Trap step, dubstep, chill step, drum step, and it's really fun and funky. I mostly just listen to it, well, in the beginning I mostly listened to it because I needed really upbeat music for my outros, but after listening to Monster Cat and Tasty Network and Keto Music and a variety of other different channels, I just really enjoyed it. The first dubstep song I heard actually was by Ephixa, and it was I think it was Storm of the Shadows? Yeah, it was Storm of the Shadows, and it was a Zelda song, and it was just really good. If you guys haven't heard it before, you should check it out. I'll put a link down in the description below. And I don't know, maybe you'll like it too. Alright, next question. What game story has impacted or influenced you the most? Well, if I had to pick and choose which game story has impacted or influenced me the most, I would have to say it would be a tie between Xenogears or Parasite Eve, simply because those are the two games that I played pretty thoroughly on the PlayStation when they were first released by Squaresoft. And the reason that I always loved Xenogears and that realm in general is because I'm a big mech fan and a JRPG fan in general. And the story was just really good. The characters were well done. The music was amazing. The score was done by Yasunori Mitsuda. And it was just interesting to see Fei's origins, the main character, Fei Feng Wang, to see where he came from and where all he was going. Because when he first wakes up in the village of Lahan, he has no memories. And it's really complicated. But then you come to find out that he was just this really badass mech fighter or a gear fighter. And I don't know, it just really hit home with me all the time, you know? As for Parasite Eve, well, Parasite Eve was the first game that I ever played where it was a story-rich game and the main character was a woman. And it wasn't, you know, I hadn't played Metroid Prime at this point. So, of course, all you people who are like, oh my god, you didn't play Metroid, what about Samus? Well, I hadn't played that at the time. I was 12 years old when I played Parasite Eve. It was the first rated M game that I'd ever played, and it was also the first rated M game from Squaresoft that was released. But, you know, that story was just really deep instead of it on its own. Like, a lot of backstory with Aya and her family, and you just find out that she just went through some really screwed up shit, and it hits home in different ways for me. And the whole, you know, finding out about mitochondria, I actually learned a lot about science because of that game. And the fact that it's kind of creepy if you think about it, that the mitochondria does have a separate DNA than the rest of our body, which in theory Parasite Eve could legit happen if someone were to let their mitochondria evolve into a sentient state and take over our bodies. And also the idea of spontaneous combusting, that kind of played into it as well. For anyone who hasn't played that game, you should. It's really good. And it's just one of those first games that just had a really in-depth story, and it was kind of horrific if you think about it. The whole thought of an entire city being taken over by an ultimate being who was birthed by Eve. It just sends shivers up my back. Alright, next question. What is the most critical form of criticism you've ever given yourself? That I could always do better. That I could always do better. I actually was going back through and watching a lot of my earlier YouTube videos when I first started this channel, and a lot of my earlier art pieces, and just, it's amazing to see how much I've grown as a YouTuber and as an artist since I first started drawing when I was very young. And if you think about it, like, I'm so critical of my artwork. Like, I go back and look at my stuff and I'm like, oh my god, what is this shit that I was drawing? This is ridiculous. Like, how dare I call this art? But it was. Like, I was, you know, if you think about it from the eyes of like a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, that was really well done for myself. And I just have to remember that I can't be too hard on myself, because while I can always do better, I can't forget where I've come from and that I've improved so much. The same thing goes with writing. My writing has vastly improved from when I first started writing fan fiction and just writing in general when I was 12 and RPing online on play-by-post forums. But just the most critical form of criticism that I've ever given myself is that I can always do better. And that goes for anyone. Anyone can always do better. Like, never, ever, ever believe that you've reached your limit. Because you never know. I mean, you just have to train and practice and get better and just believe in yourself and know that it's not going to be easy, but you may not be happy where you are either, but just remember where you came from, and that's all that really matters. Alright, next question. What is the best way to display additional content at your end slate? Is it better to have a nice assortment of videos that don't get views on their own? Or would you rather relate similar videos to the one the audience just watched? This is regarding like people who do the thumbnail bits at the end where they link you to videos that showcase different content on their channel. I personally don't do that because a lot of my stuff is very episodic, so I just show you a little preview clip on a little section based on what I'm playing. But as far as like an end slate goes, I think it's really good just to kind of whatever game you're playing, it's kind of good to stay in that particular genre, because I'm sure that the person who's watching your videos is watching it for that particular genre. So if you're playing like Left 4 Dead, or if you're playing DayZ, or 7 Days to Die, or Project Zomboid, like if you're playing games like that, then it's good to kind of connect with other like survival horror games. Or if you're playing like a horror game, then I would want you to link maybe to other horror games, or if you're doing pixel games or platformers or anything like that, just to give your channel some variety and to help guide your viewers to other directions that you think that they might want to go, because the recommended section over on the right only links them so far, and it's usually toward relevance versus toward, you know, actual genres themselves. Do you consider yourself a new member of the video game culture or an old member? And if an old member, how do you feel about the development of said culture? I consider myself a member of the old, like video game culture, just because I started playing like on the NES, Super Mario Brothers, Ninja Turtles, Sonic, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, those kind of games, Tiny Toons. So it's just one of those things where I've always been part of the culture, but I feel really terrible for a lot of the newer members of the video game culture because they're so stuck on pretty. They're so stuck on the pretty of the game and haven't really experienced the story, because that's what really pushed games back in the day. You remember, guys? Like, it was all about the story. Like, if you didn't have a good story, you just couldn't hope to have a good game, and that's what really pushed people to play through these games like Legend of Zelda and Chrono Trigger. Just the graphics just weren't that great, but the story is what carried you through to the very end. And I just, like, while I love the visualizations and the epic scores and a lot of the really heavy multiplayer features, I think a lot of people are just getting detracted away from the story, and that's what great games to me are all about. It's about entertaining the person and being able to really immerse yourself in the world and just really enjoying the experience that the game is giving you. And I feel like a lot of games nowadays lack that depth and the richness of the story. And if it's, you know, got beautiful graphics, great, but the story's weak. Or if the story's weak and the graphics weren't all that great, and it's like, why do the graphics matter? The story is what pushes you to the end, and that's all that really should matter. And that's how I've always felt about it as far as regarding, you know, the video game culture. As for the whole difference between men and women in the culture, that really doesn't stand with me, because who gives a shit about sexism in video games? I mean, yeah, sexism existed because it was mostly a male-dominated, you know, industry, and it still is a male-dominated industry, but it's slowly starting to change. A lot of female gamers are coming out, and just, you know, female game developers, and getting involved in all these different Kickstarter projects, and it's a moot point now. Like, it's a moot thing. Like, for people to get upset over, you know, sexism in video games, it's like, okay, well, what about sexism in real life? What about these people who are getting oppressed in different countries because they're female, or getting oppressed in different countries because they're male? It's like, a lot of people who cherry pick and pick at video games just to have a reason to like stir up bullshit and to take away from the fun and the entertainment value of video games. I just can't stand those people. Like, all they're doing is feeding into the social media and just being fucking tools, and it's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it really annoys me with all this crap going on with like game journalism and all that bullshit with Gamergate and all the other things involved with Gamergate and not involved with Gamergate, and all the death threats and craziness, and Anita Sarkeesian, and just it's just stupid, stupid, stupid. And I'm not even going to get into that right now. But it's basically, am I glad to be part of this culture? Yes. I've always been part of this culture. Yes. Do I feel oppressed in this culture? No. Any female gamer out there will tell you. A genuine gamer will tell you they don't give a rat's ass about feministic whatever in video games. Like, they don't give a shit. It's all about the story. It's all about telling the story. It's all about having fun. It's all about being entertained. Just like it is with any gamer. I mean, come on, get real. Alright, and next question is, would you consider doing part of one of your Let's Plays in Korean? I probably would not. Just because it's something that I don't really feel is necessary. Most of my viewers are from the United States, and on top of the fact that I would be not only speaking in Korean, but I would have to put subtitles down on the bottom. And I usually, when I'm playing a game, I put the subtitles on so people can read if they can't quite hear what people in dialogue are saying as far as characters go. And so, plus, it's just really difficult for me sometimes because it's bad enough that I pick and choose my Korean words when I'm talking in English. Because, you know, sometimes I'll be describing something to my mom and be like, oh, Mom, I need this. And she won't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, I need this. And I'll say it in Korean, and she'll say something to me in Korean that she can't quite translate in English. So it's bad enough that it's like intermingled like Korenglish, or Konglish, whatever you want to call it. But on top of that, I have to do that, and then I'd have to translate, and then I'd have to worry about my audience being like, oh my god, I don't want to have to read on top of reading on top of reading. I want to be entertained. And while it's a beautiful language, and I am proud of being half Korean and having, you know, mastered this language, I just don't feel comfortable doing something like that. So no, I don't think I'll ever do it. I might do like a special, like I'll do a couple of intros or outros or something like that in Korean, but nothing solid, nothing steady. Not even for a partial Let's Play. Alright, next question. Which lead female protagonist in a video game would you like to play besides Bayonetta? Well, I'm already playing through Remember Me with Nilin. Actually, I'm not playing through it anymore. I just finished it. But, I played Lightning in the Final Fantasy 13 games. As far as female protagonists go, I really think that I really want the next Mirror's Edge game to come out because Faith is just amazing, and the game is amazing. The soundtrack is brilliant. But I think there's this game out. I really can't remember the name of it for the life of me. Oh, snap! That's right. It was Heavenly Sword. It was the game that came out. It was one of the first games that came out for the PS3. And it was called Heavenly Sword, and it was just a beautiful game. And I actually have, like, the animated movie, but I've always wanted to play that game. And when I went to go visit my friend Azarai for vacation, she had the game, but something was wrong with it, and, like, I couldn't get past the first, like, introductory scene, and I was really sad. So I've always wanted to play it, and I've never actually played it before, because I don't have a PS3 or a PS4 or an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One. I primarily play on PC and on my PlayStation 2. Like, that's the most that I have. I have a lot of PlayStation 2 games that I haven't even gotten a chance to open and play yet. And when I get an adapter, I want to be able to play those and emulate those for you guys. So I think it'll be fun. And I think that's it for this week's Q&A. Wow, I didn't have that many questions. But yeah, if you like this, please send me a comment or place a comment down below and tell me what you think. If you have any other questions, please feel free to inbox them to me in my YouTube box or to message them to me at Twitter on @PieChan. Or if you have my Facebook link, you can check out my Facebook and message me there on my Facebook page. And if I know you personally, well, you know, you can message me personally. And so yeah, that's it for this week's Q&A. And I hope you guys enjoyed it and got to know me a little more. Tell me a little bit about you guys. Like, what were the first video games that you got to play? And just leave a comment down below, okay? Alright, thanks again, guys. And until next Q&A, bye!